Good afternoon, and welcome to the Penfield Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee. I'm Sinette Cavalier, presiding over the November 14th meeting. So I want to welcome everybody here today. And first, I'd like to start with our introductions of the committee. So Steve, if you can start from your end.
Hello, committee member Stephen Daly.
Committee member Ari Sharamedev.
Pat Schickler, committee member.
Roy Green, committee member.
Katie Rigg, committee member.
Matt Prinzing, Planning Department Staff Liaison.
Sarah Waterman, Engineering Department Staff Liaison.
Kevin Berry, Town Board Liaison.
Thank you. Okay, diving into the agenda, we want to start with the review and approval of the minutes of the October 10th meeting. Can I have a motion for approval?
May I ask one question first? I just note, and this may be the typical way to do that, but when you talked about the assignment of the project for the EPOD, do you usually or you don't indicate who's been given the assignment?
I can modify it if you would prefer. I mean, I can't speak to how we've done it in the past. I can't remember precisely, but if you would.
I don't care either way, but I just happened to be looking for it, and then it's like, oh, maybe we don't do that anymore. That's all.
Yeah, no, I don't think, yeah, I couldn't say for sure. I mean, ultimately, those who are participating on the report, they're on the, they're written into the report. It says who wrote it.
Yeah, so it follows through on that. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Just thought I'd mention.
Sure.
Okay, in that instance, I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
Can I have a second?
Seconded.
Thank you. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Okay. No opposed. Okay, and then moving on to the standing report for the Monroe County Environment Management Council. You did get a copy of the report attached to your package, and it will be attached to the minutes as well for this meeting. So the meeting was on October 16th. Our guest presenter at the time was Lance Lasari, who was from Trout Unlimited, specifically focused on Irondequoit Creek conservation efforts. So it was a really good educational program for us. Really kind of learned about their perspective on managing creeks and streams, the idea of trying to let it be as natural as possible, trying not to clean out the debris if you can avoid doing that. So it was very good. He did, because he spent a lot of time on the Irondequoit Creek, he definitely touched on the sections that flow through Penfield and Fairport, because we have quite a large majority of the length of it there. And then just in addition to that, just for, I did provide some of the other things, the way that committee, the Environmental Management Council kind of operates, talking about the different committees. Our next program is going to include a tour of the RTS bus garage, which I have already seen, so if you ever get a chance to do that, it is definitely worth doing, just to see their buses and equipment that is relying on renewable energy instead of just simply gasoline or diesel. So are there any questions on the report?
Not on the report, but do we know how often the areas of the stream are cleaned out or looked at? Or maybe there's just not, just when an issue comes up?
It's a little more complicated. So yes, different sections of the Irondequoit Creek, as well as tributaries and other streams in town, are inspected kind of on a routine basis, so that depending on if it's a creek, stream, tributary, it's more of a descending order like that. So the tributaries are inspected less often unless there's an issue, whereas Irondequoit Creek is inspected more often, both because it's larger and because it has a higher effect when there's an issue. With that, the town does actually have a drainage fund that is allocated towards doing stream repairs. If you've seen anything this past year about Allen's Creek, which is a tributary to Irondequoit Creek, there was a large project that the town chose to move forward with. It's been years in the works, and finally it's actually getting completed this year, or actually almost completed now. So we work with the DEC as well as other groups to make sure that we're meeting those requirements, using natural methods of returning the stream to its ideal original state. Then we also have projects where if there's a blockage or reduced flow in a stream, the town will often go in with DEC permitting most of the time to do some work on those streams. Ideally, if it's possible to just pluck out something blocking a stream, that's the first option with the town because that's not requiring a permit. And DEC permits take most of the time at least a year to get. With that, we have to work with residents to do notifications, get approval to go on their land sometimes, depending on the situation. So the short answer is yes, the town is continuing to inspect different streams, tributaries, and creeks. The process of cleaning them is a lot more complicated.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I did want to make a note under Monroe County Environmental Management Council that it is my understanding that at this time, the town board is looking to reappoint Sanette as the representative for that. That does not mean that other committee members cannot attend. If there are any committee members that are interested in being a secondary for attendance at those meetings, or even at specifically that, then please let us know and we can put you on a list so that you can be part of the meeting. If you would just like to attend a meeting here or there, it is a public meeting, so everyone is welcome. But I don't know how they handle public participation.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay. So we'll get into the review of required items. The first one is the town development projects.
Yeah, so we received this draft of the project, or the committee's report on the 2520 Browncroft Boulevard. At this point, or at that time, I had just a couple revisions here that I added. They're highlighted in green here. To this point, I haven't received any additional comments. I guess I'll open this up for any further discussion, or if the committee simply wants to move into a vote to approve it, to have it be sent to both the planning board and the applicant for their consideration. But yeah, I'll leave it to the committee members or the members that contributed to the report to either briefly summarize it or have any discussions.
Do any of you want to talk about, go through your process, or?
Okay, you all can fill in then. So we visited this property, which is off of Creek Street, and it's in back of the fast track there. It does contain a woodland e-pod, and there were a number of trees that the development proposes to keep. There are trees outside of the woodland e-pod that they will be taking down, but let's see, Stephen, did you want to talk about the numbers? It's within the tolerable level of disturbance of the acreage, so that mitigation's not required.
Right, so under the official EPOD maps, the area of disturbance comes within 10%. I believe it's 9.2%, which is reflected in the report. The issue that at least this committee member observed when we were out there in the field was that there's a number of trees that aren't within the official EPOD maps, but that appear to be part of essentially the same woodland area. And after numerous discussions and drafts and then talking to town staff, I think we came up with a good proposed solution, which is recommending to the planning board that the planning board considers those trees that are outside the woodlandy pond, but also factors in the fact that they're essentially part of the same wooded area. And I think the language that we struck is a good balance of that.
I agree.
I agree, too.
Okay. Any other discussion on this? Anybody else want to add anything?
I don't, except to say that I'm glad that you were following up with that, Stephen. Thank you.
No problem. It's my pleasure. And I appreciate town staff for putting up with me.
We are happy to.
Yeah.
And I've been following along the comments, and I think I agree that, in fact, I responded back on that. I thought that was a good compromise versus trying to redraw an EPAD for, one particular property.
I think one of the other notable concerns was the protection of certain trees, like with the 3 that are depicted along the construction fence line. If they could just be more clear on how those trees are going to be protected. I see that that's in the first bullet there, so. And then the 7 identified in the proposed island.
Yeah, so I think that this report reflects the need to provide a tree protection detail for those trees that are along the construction fence line from that 50-foot improvement setback on the north end of the property, and then you also have the island. But also there's trees that aren't in those 2 particular areas that also are marked as having protection, right? So we want to ensure that all of the trees on the site that are noted on the plan as being protected have a protection plan associated with it, so, yeah.
Good. Okay, so we don't do these very often, requests for approval of the letter? Is that what we do? As it is, like a motion form?
You can do a motion if you want. I think it'd be appropriate to take a vote.
Okay.
Could I ask one last thing? You had pointed out us noticing the discrepancy between their application and the letter of intent, how they worded the acreage. I didn't know if I know you were going to refer that information to the developer, and I didn't know if they had responded.
There hasn't been an explicit response yet for that, but ultimately we'll clarify that
Our report is worded correctly. I mean, I know that it is.
No, right, exactly. Yeah, I should say that, like, the report correctly reflects how
Yes.
I mean, this was specifically just the wording on how they were subdividing. It wasn't very clear of, okay, so what was the original size? What are the, sizes of the subsequent parcels?
Yeah.
And so, yes, I mean, ultimately, it was corrected, or it was reflected correctly on the subdivision plan, which shows, what the original parcel size and what the 2 parcels remaining will be. But yeah, having some sort of comment to
Because we didn't make it part of the report because you were going to be
Right, exactly.
reaching out to the developer.
Yeah,
Okay.
right.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, back to vote.
Back to voting. So since it doesn't necessarily need to be a motion and a second, can I have a ayes if all are in favor of the letter as it is written moving forward? So aye?
Aye.
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 Okay, thank you.
Did you want to give an aye?
Aye.
Nay? Okay.
I started with my aye,
Oh,
so
I
it's
missed it.
okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. Yes, all ayes, thank you. Okay, and then this goes to the planning committee today?
The
Is that
planning
what-
board.
Planning board,
Yes, so, I mean, we didn't propose any modifications, so they essentially have the approved
Okay.
draft in their hands. I will just let them know that the draft, as it was provided to them this past Friday, was approved by the committee. And then we'll also share it with the developer. That's the one kind of party in this that hasn't seen this report yet. So that would be really the most substantial step, I would say.
okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Okay, so our next is requests from the town board. And as I understand, we're starting with next year's schedule.
Yep, so we chose to move next year's schedule up to that as it is an item that we need to provide for the town board. So that was sent out last week. We're following the same cadence of the second Thursday each month, same time of 4 6:30 to 6 PM. It will continue to be the meeting prior to the planning board meeting each month. So we're keeping that similar. We did not, at this point, hear any concerns with any of the dates. Are there any, or would you like to take a vote on to continue with this proposed schedule for next year?
Just a question.
Sure.
Would it make sense to alternate a week off of the planning board? Because like, it seems like there's sometimes we have to vote or approve things and get it ready for that planning board. It'd be nice if we're a week ahead of them.
So the potential problem with being a week ahead of them is that, so similar to last meeting, Matt was able to provide the documents for the application that this committee reviewed at tonight's meeting, as well as he provided that at the last meeting. If we were a week earlier, we would not have had those documents to provide to the committee because that wouldn't have been, like, we wouldn't have had the due date for them at that point. Whereas because of the cadence that we currently have, we are able to provide the document and then the night of a public hearing, have this committee provide their report. So if we did it earlier or later, then that would make it essentially so there's 2 meetings that the planning board would have before formally having the report. Now they have the public hearing, they technically get the report the same night. And I can tell you in my 8 years here, they've approved one application on the night of a public hearing. So it's not common practice to approve it the same night. And I don't even believe that application had an EPOD on it, actually.
Okay.
I cannot assure you 100% that they will not approve Silver Maple Dental tonight because I don't make that decision. But I think at this time, the cadence is what the planning board needs from us.
Okay.
So it is interesting. Shifting us forward a week actually delays the whole process by a month.
It does.
It's
Right.
kind of an interesting
Isn't that weird?
perspective.
And shifting back a week also delays the
Yes.
whole process by a month.
So-
It's just an inconvenient
Yep,
truth.
so we're at the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor of approving this calendar for next year indicate by saying aye.
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 Good. That's all of us have said aye.
Great, thank you.
Okay, are there any other requests from the town board?
Not at this time.
Okay. Clean energy community actions, are there any updates on that?
There's no changes in status at this time. I can let the committee know that we're currently expecting a new form of the program to come out early next year. That'll be CEC 4.0. It is my understanding that the actions that are currently in progress will remain a part of the program, so we can keep doing our community campaigns as we are. The biggest thing that will currently affect us for next year, and that change, is the grant amounts will change. That isn't ideal, but I do not believe that makes having these classes any less valuable for the public at this time.
So I assume they're going down, the grant?
Yeah, that's my understanding. I have no formal documentation of that at this point because they haven't published it, but that's my current understanding.
Does that go live in January?
It'd be really great to have a date, and I don't.
Okay.
Yeah,
But
they haven't published that either yet.
Yeah, but the fact that there is an opportunity for a CEC 4.0 is actually a positive thing, because we thought it was going to be pretty much totally gone.
It is currently
So-
still expected to end at the end of 2025.
Okay. Okay, so we can move on to old business and our favorite topic, the Renewable Energy Systems Code. And I think you all saw that Matt sent out a timeline, which really emphasizes the importance of us getting it to a state that it can move forward after tonight.
And to be clear for the public, that is a potential timeline. It's not a, this is exactly the way it is moving forward, but it includes what steps are necessary to move forward, and if we move forward at the fastest rate possible, how it would work. And that partially brings up the point of, for the res code to move forward, at some point, the town board needs to have a public hearing. For the town board to have a public hearing, they, it's my understanding, are looking for a recommendation of this committee based on if or if not, this code will have substantial changes. If we go through this meeting as much as we can go through this meeting, Matt's and my hope is that we can address any major concerns that would cause substantial changes. Those would be things like if we're just removing decommissioning plans from the code, if there's a whole other renewable energy system that needs to be included, basically big picture items. If it's grammar, the punctuation, the way something is phrased in one of the sentences, that would be a small picture item that would not necessitate a second public hearing if they were to have one in the near future. Part of the reason they're looking for that is because for this code to be adopted at the soonest in February, then they need to have a public hearing next month. If they do not have a public hearing next month, they would need to have one early next year. Because the town currently has a moratorium on commercial solar and ground-mounted solar, residential solar, that ends in June 2025. The goal of the town board is to have the code adopted prior to the end of that expiration, or prior to that expiration. It is not a requirement for it to be approved before then, but we do recognize that residents as well as developers have come to the town looking to implement those types of projects, and we don't ideally want to prevent people from having renewable energy. It does need to be regulated, though. So that is, again, why we were doing this. So if the committee is comfortable at the end of this meeting that there are no big picture changes, we'll want to have that on record. If the committee is not comfortable and thinks that there might be big picture changes, then we want that on record as well. Does anyone have questions with that?
So the ask is whether we will have, so we'll go through today, and then you all have, the town staff has our comments, at least right now.
Yes.
And then, I guess, is the town board asking for some kind of input on whether we anticipate the public having?
No.
There's
So
no expectation for us to anticipate what input, if any, we'll have from the public. Yeah.
Got it.
So the town board does not need a final code.
Right.
They need a draft code that expects to have no major changes to have a public hearing.
Got it.
If there's a public hearing and then subsequently there is a major change, then they may have to have another public hearing. That can still happen if there's public comments that come in at the public hearing and the town board feels that something should be changed based on those. That is a big deal, or a big change. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that answer your question, Lo?
It does, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Can I ask?
And the town attorney has been reviewing this as it goes along as well? Okay.
Yes, yes.
So I'm not a professional developer for renewables, and I certainly have my ideas, but I'm wondering at what point, and I know we took this as, model code that surely professionals have been working on to develop, maybe? I mean, they maybe hope.
That's accurate.
Okay.
With NYSERDA.
So is there, could we have put anything in there that would be like an undue hardship that professionals would balk at? And I would like to know if that, do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I think the appropriate answer is yes, that's entirely possible that developers would balk at something. However, it is my understanding that at least one company that builds solar farms and is looking to build a solar farm in this town understands what this process is and in fact may be watching tonight. So my understanding from them, because they've reached out before we started this process, at the beginning of the moratorium and have continued to, is that I think if they have major concerns, they would bring that up. That doesn't mean that that thing's gonna be changed. Because someone might have a major concern and that it's going to make it more difficult to do something that they wanna do, but the town board may feel it's still appropriate to have that regulation.
Sure. No, I totally understand that.
But by having these meetings as we have, by going through all of the comments, by providing all of the words as part of this that are in the res code, that gives an opportunity for that type of input that I think you're talking about.
And they would then speak at the public hearing if they
I
had
would
an
hope.
opinion?
Yes.
Okay.
I can tell you at least one of those companies did speak at the solar moratorium meeting, public hearing.
Thank you.
So there's, for instance, in zoning law and zoning codes, people can seek a variance. Is that what you're talking about, Katie, in this? You know, when you say undue hardship, would there be like a variance to this RES code
If
that somebody could apply for?
it's a little more complicated, because there's some legal things that I definitely can't speak to. But yes, a variance can be approved if undue hardship is shown. That would be something that goes to the zoning board. Right now, if someone wanted a variance to the solar moratorium, they would go to the town board. Those types of things. This is an appropriate time if a large solar company or a resident was looking at the draft code as we're reviewing it and we're like, I think that's gonna make it impossible to put solar on my property. Now is an appropriate time for them to come to town staff and voice that, to come to the public hearing when it ever is announced, and like share that. That's part of the request for public input that a public hearing is.
Okay. Well, I guess I'm asking, would there be possibilities for an exception to the code, you know, based on undue hardship after the fact, ever?
Yes,
Okay. All right.
please.
Let's get on with this.
Yes. Starting, I added these comments to reflect the discussion we had at the last meeting. Roy had mentioned, you know, consideration for recycling of materials in a decommissioning plan. Ultimately, I think that any sort of documentation or recommendation for what should be included in a decommissioning plan, ultimately the embodied carbon of materials would be a bigger item for any development to consider, not just RES or renewable energy systems. So that this comment would be more appropriate for the revisions or modifications to the town's construction and design and construction guidelines when we revise our those to include the definition and requirements for a decommissioning plan, as well as the comprehensive town decarbonization mitigation plan. Do you feel that that is appropriate? Okay, so that'll be satisfied. I'll just mark that one, and we'll keep chugging along. This one, I think that, you know, this is kind of getting back to the language, and we discussed this. I don't think that if we were to modify the intent, that would be, if we wanted to add stronger language perhaps to this, that would be a relatively minor change.
Okay.
It's still going to have that spirit of promoting the health and safety and welfare of the public.
So my comment had been that in the initial intent, it had one set of wording which was then repeated for each of the clauses as appropriate or types of res. So I'd ask why they'd repeated it. And he said that basically the response was that very often a homeowner or somebody that's interested in this code would go to the, oh, I'm looking at solar energy, and would not start at the top. So it was repeated there, so. My concern is just like, I think if you know, you're very familiar with this, if you develop a plan and then put the same wording in 5 places, and then at some point in time you need to edit one of them, it's very hard to remember that you need to edit all 5. So it's just, but it's fine. I mean, it's just,
Okay,
it's kind of soft wording as it is.
sure. Any other comments on that? Do we think we kind of move on from this?
Yes,
or-
go ahead.
All right,
You want to mark that
You wanna
complete?
mark it complete?
sure, all right.
Yeah, I support the revised language there.
Okay, thank you.
And as a user for things, I would say the same thing, that when I go to look at something, I zero in on what's needed for that area, not the entire document, especially something like this.
Sure. This was just a comment that we made, or a modification we made to address comments from the building department. Doesn't seem like anybody had any concerns with this. We're good to move on from this particular comment.
And specifically, it's talking about the plan should be subject to administrative review by the planning and engineering department and meet the following requirements, which are listed below that. So it's just a slight language change.
Right.
No issues.
So screening and visibility, we've had some comments on this and deciding whether or not this should just simply be a requirement. We feel that there's cases where screening may need to be required if you have very dense development and they want to put specifically ground-mounted solar on their property. It may be in order to ensure compliance with the surrounding land uses, then screening and visibility should be considered by the planning board. But there's other cases where you may not have as dense development and the ground-mounted solar may not necessitate the same screening and visibility as other areas of town. So that's why the language here is more of subjective to the board having jurisdiction to decide whether the screening and visibility is located appropriately and appropriately minimizes views.
And if the planning board felt that was necessary to have screening and visibility items, then they would include that as part of the approval resolution. So it would be formally written that it's required.
Right.
If that language wasn't there, if that section D wasn't there, could the planning board still require it?
It's a little more complicated if it's not there legally, is my understanding, and that's why it was included.
I still think it's subjective. It's just. seems
You're right,
like,
it is.
Hey, might be some screening, might not. It could be, we require this, natural vegetation or fence, or a fence is this high, maybe it's this high, yeah, whatever.
It is, you're correct.
The fencing, I think eventually we'll get to the fencing, but we eventually came to the determination that the National Energy Code is very clear on what height of fencing you would need for any type of installation. And that energy code is subject to change. So if we said that, 8 feet as required by the National Energy Code, and the National Energy Code changed it to 10 feet, then so in that case, we are more comfortable with referring to that, the code and their set standard, rather than citing what the standard is today and then it changing further.
Can't we just put in language to cite that whatever the energy code states at the time of the application?
So that's actually a different part of the code right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, Matt kind of went forward a little
Right.
bit. So right now, we're talking about privacy fencing as one of the items for screening and visibility. What Matt is referring to is what's required by the National
Energy Code.
Energy Code, and that is more specifically for
For
like
security.
security.
Right.
So that is addressed at a different location in this code, and it is citing the National Energy Code. Is everyone good with that to be approved at this point?
I still don't like it.
Okay.
I
Does
do like
anyone
it.
else not like
I
it?
was going to say, it's just, to me, it's just, once again, it's soft language, and but it's fine. I mean, it's almost all cases, there will be a screening or of some nature, so this is just kind of saying, hey, you're probably going to have to do this, so we're going to put it in here, so at least it's on your mind when we tell you you have to do it.
And, I mean, in support of the language, I mean, it's a Tier 2 SES that's in all zoning districts, so I mean, in theory, you can have this, residential zoning district, and frankly, I think you're looking at issues with visual impacts that would have to be addressed one way or the other, and I think providing these tools for whatever the board had issued, it makes a lot of sense.
I agree. Yeah, as long as the language is here, then the board can determine what needs to happen. And during the planning process, or the public comment process, there might be more specific information that they bring to the table as well.
Sure.
You're very correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's the language, the way it's worded, how soft it is, but don't argue against having the tools of putting it in there. I just didn't like the way it was worded.
But soft could work both ways. It could work for the applicant, could work for who's reviewing.
The Board of Jurisdiction.
Right, but
Yeah.
it could also be applied differently to different people. So, you could apply, and it could be, oh, you have to put it in this screening. You could apply, and I'm sorry, you don't need it.
Well, this is true, but, there speaks to, Katie's, hardship issues. Something could always say, hey, I see that you approved this such and such, previously, and we're not getting the same treatment, and they certainly could, file for review on it.
Do we want to put in that screening and visibility shall be determined during the planning process, project-specific type language, pending project-specific information or location?
I mean, maybe even shall be determined by the board having jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Something, that sounds great.
Would
I
that be
like that.
helpful?
I think
I
it would be.
would only say that every item in this list is subject to the approval of the board having jurisdiction. So it's kind of redundant to say that
Okay.
this is subject to the approval of the board having jurisdiction when all of this is.
Okay.
Right, because it makes it stand out, like
Yeah,
it's
right,
something
right.
different,
So
and the others aren't
here,
subject to the board.
When we look at it, really, so this first part saying the site plan shall be subject to administrative review by the planning and engineering department to meet the following requirements.
Okay.
In that case, administrative review doesn't necessarily mean it goes to the planning board. In cases where it doesn't require, or the engineering department sees that it meets the, setback requirements, the location, height, in all of these terms, then ultimately, then it will just be approved administratively without going to the planning board. That's what the administrative review process. So in this case, it would be the town engineer and potentially the landscape consultant going, looking at the site and seeing whether or not screening and visibility is being adversely impacted and would be required in
See,
this particular
And
application.
it almost seems like it would be just so simple to say, like, at the start of that second sentence, if required, screening materials may include but are not limited to.
I would
it's just
think
that
that an applicant will say like, well, so what do you mean by if
Required.
required?
Well, if they've
Right.
taken,
They're not
so
gonna
to
want
me,
it.
that would mean that they've already done the due diligence to locate it, to minimize views, and therefore nothing additional is needed, or something else is needed. In that case, that's the screening material. I think those are your either-ors. You've either hidden it without something, or you're going to need it.
Sure.
So, and I think that's kind of like, that's what's really missing. Like, if it's, it's like adding the screening material section there is kind of weird without saying that screening material is required. So that's why it's like, if it's required.
Well, it sounds like screenings may be, well, it may not be required if it's not visible.
If it's not visible.
I think it would probably be appropriate to make a comment on it, because I would deem that as a small change if something's going to be changed pertaining to that, of the suggestion to add if required prior to screening materials. Yeah, sorry. Does anyone disagree with that?
Because I think that helps resolve Roy's concern, is it's, you know,
Right,
it's-
because right now it just randomly says screening materials are, and it doesn't say that like, it's so subjective. It's like, well, if it goes back to the jurisdiction reviewing the project, it may be required or not. Like, how would I determine if it's required, if I'm the applicant?
You would work with the review group.
Right, but it doesn't say that.
It does, actually. So that's where it said that under administrative review, it's with the planning and engineering
At the
department.
top.
Right.
The planning department, not the planning board, the engineering.
Planning, yeah,
Planning and engineering
engineering
department.
Yeah,
So it does technically say that.
right.
And I feel like Sinet's proposed change is actually veering towards giving that board more discretion, which to me is, I think, a good thing. And, I mean, from where the original draft had it was that screening materials shall include, I believe, of something along those lines. And we made it so that the board and the developer could work together to come to some solution. And I think encouraging that kind of cooperative process is, I think, really helpful here, because we don't know right now what the screening materials could include, or maybe someone will come up with something really good in the future. So, I mean, I like Sinet's proposed change of saying if required. I think that makes some sense, but otherwise, I think that this is where it needs to be, at least from my perspective.
I would agree. I would want to see flexibility in what Stephen is saying. I think all of these applications and, even, later on when we get to some other reviews of the EPODs, it's based on goodwill of the town and developers and applicants working together, and that's got to be fostered. And I think if we pigeonhole too much stuff in there.
Right, and every yard is going to be different. And so there's really no getting around the subjectivity.
I mean, they might not even ever be forced to, require ask for a variance, because presumably they're talking together, so they could be making a case of, well, I think you need this, well, I've got this, and,
So-
that's where this is happening before something's
agree.
approved or denied.
So is the committee supportive of adding if required, as Matt just added, and then accepting the comments pertaining to that section?
Yeah, I think that's better. And it is more subjective, but at least to me, it makes it more of like an actual requirement. Like,
Great.
it's been reviewed, and it's like, now we're gonna say, you need this.
Yeah, okay. It sounds like you can accept that then.
Okay.
All right.
And we'll leave it as attract change if required, so that we can document that for the other staff members that look at it.
And for the copy that's going to the town board.
Yeah.
Yeah. This one is kind of in the similar same vein of the language, saying that it's the solar access or solar energy equipment shall be located in a manner to reasonably avoid and/or minimize blockage. Ultimately, I mean, the setback requirements will most often ensure that solar access is allowed or reasonably avoided on neighboring properties, because you have to offset from the neighboring properties based on those setback requirements. This is kind of allowing cases where we want the planning board to consider perhaps site-specific features. So like if you're putting your ground-mounted solar panel on a slightly higher elevation, although it meets the setback requirements, it is creating or limiting the solar access to a neighboring property. So, it would allow the planning board, or in this case, or if it were, it would be the planning and engineering department, to consider, an arrangement that would minimize the impact to solar access on neighboring properties. So again, it's kind of looking at ways that we can put in softer language so that we can consider this or consider rearrangement, even though it meets the setback requirements. We consider other factors to help reasonably avoid those.
So, quick question, going
Yeah.
back to the setback requirements. Would the privacy screening have to be on or within those setbacks? So if you were to put up a berm, it would have to be the 10-foot back, or the 10, 15-foot, or greater than 15-foot, depending on what it is?
No, so this is the setback requirement for the SES itself.
The structure.
Right, the structures. You know, there aren't setback requirements for fences and things like that. So in the same sense, you would have your, the National Energy Code does have setback distances in some cases from your, you know, your solar panel, your live equipment to the fence. It has to be this far away. And so if that were to change or be modified, then we would just defer to those standards in the National Energy Code.
Okay. And going back to the other one, my big concern is the reasonably avoid. Like, I don't know if we could just get rid of the word reasonably and just say avoid and or minimize blockage.
I think that's completely fine. Does
Yeah.
anyone disagree?
No, I think I agree with Roy. I think it's
I agree.
confusing.
Okay,
Yeah, that's a good suggestion.
great, thank you.
All right?
I'm good with it.
And then you can accept that comment.
Okay. Going into Aries' comment here about environmental monitoring in prime agricultural districts. For any development in prime agricultural districts, regardless of renewable energy systems or, you know, site plan and subdivision for, you know, anything like that, the town doesn't require this specific kind of environmental monitoring. I mean, they, depending on the type of development, they may have to go through the seeker review process, but ultimately when it comes to, you know, post-construction environmental monitoring, I mean, there could be requirements related to the SWIP that requires post-construction and pre-construction sort of environmental monitoring. But yeah, we felt that placing a specific environmental monitoring on renewable energy systems would be out of place when we don't really have those for any other type of development in the town.
Not on any prime agricultural districts?
Not regulated by the town.
Right,
Those kinds of things are regulated by Ag and Market,
Right.
yeah.
but
Okay.
there are none regulated by the town.
So you just
Right.
refer to ag and market require, okay.
Sure.
that's-
Yeah.
I get it. Thank
So
you.
I'll mark
Which
that as.
Matt
sorry.
explained that in the comment, too.
This one I wasn't clear on if we were talking about required setback distances for the screening and landscaping. Again, there may be requirements for screening and landscaping depending on the type of renewable energy system we're talking about based on the National Energy Code. But ultimately, when it comes to the specific standards that we have for like Tier 3 in the conditional use permit and standards, we have those suggested setbacks.
Additionally,
That's-
within the town's design specs, there are regulations for like the height of a fence within this distance of a roadway.
Right.
Basically site distance concerns.
Yeah, that's
for
what I was getting
safety.
at.
So
yeah.
those are already in the design spec.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or planting trees too close to a residential, trees that can grow up to,
Yep.
you know, be a larger, okay.
Yeah.
That's fine. Thank you.
Yeah, so this one again, we have requirements within the town code already, depending on the type of development and the amount of disturbance and the requirements for SWIP. So do we feel this is appropriately addressed?
Yes.
Okay.
And although those are regulated by the DEC, they are enforced by the town as well as the DEC.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so, and this comment regarding whether or not these will be directly fed into the power grid or require a BESS, essentially battery energy storage system. They can be connected to the grid or have battery energy storage systems. That's one thing that, you know, just because you have a primary use solar energy, or you can also have, you know, a primary use solar and a primary use BESS. It's not like one or the other. They can be on the same properties and they both have to meet the same criteria and regulations. So ultimately they would be, yeah, again, subject to those standards, so.
Okay, great.
Yeah, and this is just noting that the town is drafting changes to the design and construction specifications to clarify what requirements would be needed for a decommissioning plan. So that's where those requirements would be
Okay.
left.
So they'll be in a different, they'll be
Yeah,
under the town.
yeah, we're
code,
looking
not
at
this
a
code.
pretty comprehensive update to the town design and construction specifications, which will include, you know, considerations that have been brought up during this review process. Last year, we had asked for the landscape consultant to update the plant materials. That will be updated, among several other things that, yeah, will be considered.
Can we participate in reviewing that when it's, gets close enough?
I know that ultimately, you know, it's being drafted by town staff. I believe that ultimately it is approved by the town board, those design specs. So I would think that it's certainly subject to the review of the town board. And then same with like the planning board deferring review of the EPOD review to the ECC. It would come to this committee under their review if it was requested by the town board. So it's possible, but that, again, that would come as a request from the town board.
Can we request that the town board request us to look at it?
You can request basically anything you want.
Right.
I would like to see it.
I would like to see it.
I would like to see sections of it, but probably not all of it.
I want it all.
I don't truthfully think this committee will, I don't expect this committee will be asked to review all of it because not all of it will be applicable to this committee. However, both Kevin as well as staff can share that hope of this committee with the town board.
This comment is kind of circling back to what Rory and I were discussing before about fencing, and so I modified the language to say that the fencing shall be provided around the perimeter of the SES and shall comply with the fencing requirements set forth in that National Electrical Code. And
Two
so,
shalls.
right?
Two
yeah.
shells, I like it. No more maybes.
Yeah. So, yeah, in that case, and it's understood that as the National Energy Code is updated, that standard still applies. And as applications come in, they are reviewed based on the standards as they're set here. So, yeah. So do we feel?
One question about that.
Yeah.
And I need to preface this with that I'm not a farmer, but, you know, one concern in looking back at the code was just making sure that we weren't precluding agrivoltaics down the road. And I guess with the fencing requirements, does that impact the ability to also have agrivoltaics? I'm just flagging that as an issue if we mandate it.
My current understanding is that the National Electrical Code can have variances for if it is causing issues for agrivoltaics, but I believe it is considered within that code.
Got it. I just don't want to preclude agrivoltaics if.
I agree with you completely.
So I'll mark that as satisfied at this point. To address this point, I added that the definition that we use for prime farmland is as defined by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. So if the U.S. Department of Agriculture were to ever modify that definition, it would be applied to that latest definition. So.
It's a good ad.
Does
Okay.
Department of Agriculture define farmland of statewide importance?
I know
they've got the
I
prime
don't
farmland.
remember.
I think it's New York Ag and
Yeah, I mean,
Truthfully.
that's the only thing if we're going to, like, I agree that we should refer to the prime farmland definition for Department of Agriculture, but to Ari's point, I don't know about the farmland of statewide importance, which is a
I
term
don't-
of art, but I don't know where that comes from.
I can absolutely look into that. Ultimately, do we agree that that wouldn't be a substantial change?
I agree
So
with that.
I'll mark this as resolved and make a note to potentially modify this when it comes to our review again, and staff can certainly make that
Even
update.
specifically just to define farmland of statewide importance. It'll likely end up being something similar to as defined by wherever it is formally defined. And for reference, both of those items, prime farmland and farmland of statewide importance, comes from model code, which is truthfully why I can't pick off the top of my head where it's defined.
Okay.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah. Okay. So this was a modification to include the limit of disturbance shall not exceed 50% of the area of prime farmland. And actually, yeah, I'm just reading this actually for the first time and just want to look at it. So.
I made it yesterday, and can I explain what is
Sure,
intended?
yes, please.
Please do.
So, again, agrivoltaics, something I think has potential. And so, part of the reason for limiting the area of disturbance of prime farmland or statewide important soils is that, you don't want to discourage farming. But if there's some use where you have a larger area disturbance, but you're accommodating existing or future agricultural operations on that site, then you could envision a situation where you're exceeding 50%, but you're actually encouraging farming by putting the panels further apart or something. And so that's a rare circumstance, I'm sure, but I guess I don't want to preclude it. And so in the rare case where it's actually promoting agriculture, it gives the board at issue the opportunity to create an exception if needed.
So I have two thoughts with that. The first is, technically, a variance can be sought out for a situation like that. However, I think at minimum that addition that you wrote would be appropriate to take to the town attorney for review. Unless committee members feel that that should not be considered at all.
No, I think that's a good add.
Thank you.
Agreed.
Okay. Can you just make a note to have Pete review, please? And for everyone that is being patient as Matt does that, thank you, because what Matt is doing to update this document during the meeting and trying to listen to everybody's comment is not an easy task. So thank you for your continued patience as he does that.
So I'll leave that comment open still. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Moving on to this one here. This is getting back to how the town defers environmental monitoring to New York State Ag and Markets. And so do we feel that that's satisfied
Yep.
from our previous discussion?
Yep.
And I
Okay.
think you skipped one.
Yeah, is there one that
Yeah,
from
there's one
Katie up above?
it. Oh, yeah.
Could there ever be an exception for agrivoltaics?
Oh, so that is addressed with
Said-
Stephen's change.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, I added that to address Katie's point.
I think that we can accept that set of comments. It will keep Stephen's additional comment in.
Right. Okay.
Great.
So we added, this was Roy's comment that was suggesting language that would provide protection of bats. I added the language here, for this portion here in the citing, so that when the board having jurisdiction looks at the proposed siting of any West, the applicant should or shall reduce negative impacts to both birds and bats by citing the wind energy system to avoid disturbance of areas where migrating, roosting, and breeding occur. Applicants shall consult regulations and guidance provided by the New York State DEC and U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Ultimately, I really tried to get a sense by communicating with New York State DEC, if an applicant were to come to you, how would you determine whether or not the siting of this wind energy system is avoiding disturbance of, these species and things like that? And they had referred to that criteria that I had sent you, or the, did I cite it here? Yeah, so basically the New York State DEC has recommendations for developers to consider when they are siting their wind energy system, specifically for considering the adverse impacts to birds and bats. That's all they are. They're recommendations. They're not required standards. And so when it comes to, basically whenever we're like talking about a specific site or trying to get more detailed information of like what sort of recommendations, other than handing them the recommendation documentation, what sort of, and they kind of came back with, well, again, it's very site specific. Our recommendations would change depending on the site itself. And so by requiring the applicant to consult and provide documentation of that consultation, the board having jurisdiction will have an idea of what recommendations New York State DEC or Use and Fish and Wildlife have recommended based on that specific application. So yeah, it was difficult to say whether or not there was very specific things that should be in the code that applicants and the board having jurisdiction should consider, or things that we should explicitly require, because it's very, it's subject to change. It's site-specific, subject to change, and ultimately there weren't any, like when I asked about, is there anything in the town of Penfield or any natural features or populations, known populations of birds or bats that should be considered in the review process. And basically DEC and Fish and Wildlife didn't have anything that was glaring to them or anything that would be explicit to or would be applied to all of Penfield. But if they were to consider a specific project, then they may have more fine recommendations for that specific siting. So
including the item that Matt put in as C under citing, that requires the applicant to consult Fish and Wildlife as well as the DEC and provide that documentation to the Board of Jurisdiction, which would give them the opportunity to make any of those any of those recommendations requirements.
Right.
Yeah, so two thoughts here. One, it's only talking about the siting and not actually mitigation potentials. And two, it says consult. It doesn't say anything other. Okay, we talked to them. Great. It doesn't say you have to consider the recommendations.
Roy,
So I
the
think
consultation is an official submittal to the DEC and U.S. Fish and Wildlife, and it's pretty standard for all projects. And then they'll come back with, we noticed these two species, you need to do further review, or there's nothing in the area that this site is clear. And they file an official document that you keep through the project.
And that's the document that has to be submitted to the town.
Yeah.
So
And so if there's recommendations on that document, does the developer have to follow those?
Yes.
And what
So
happens
if there's
they
an
don't?
endangered species, a bird or something, what happens if they don't?
Mhm.
Well, it
It's-
is species specific.
It
The only
is.
thing I would say is that that consultation requirement is triggered by a species of concern, threatened and endangered. This is broader, Roy.
Yeah, I was going to say, it should be broader, right? Because
Well-
it's, you don't know.
Well, this is broader than
Yeah.
what they currently have as a requirement.
Yeah.
And I think if there were determined to be adverse impacts through the operation of a wind energy system, the town wouldn't be the one following up to enforce any sort of actions. It would be the New York State DEC that would go through and, cite them for any failure to comply with the standards that they set forth and, right.
Right,
And
and I'm saying the town has an opportunity to go above and beyond what the DEC currently does, because you could talk to them and say, yeah, there's, bats are not really a problem in Penfield, but we don't really know because we haven't really looked at it, studied it. there's like 6 species of bat in New York State, 4 of them are threatened. I don't know if they exist here or not.
Matt actually reached out and checked to see if there were any, like, what's the word, hibernacles
Yeah,
within
so
Penfield or
one
within-
of the recommendations for, in those guidelines for bird and bat considerations, was during the review process, considering whether or not there were known bat hibernacle within, I want to say, 50 miles of the area of the proposed
site.
project site. And the DEC was able to tell me at that point, no, there are known. But
Not within 50 miles of Penfield.
right,
is
within
what they
the,
said.
right, so essentially anywhere in the town of Penfield would be, or wouldn't be flagged for that particular concern of being within that 50-mile buffer of a bat hibernacle. Now, that is subject to change. DEC may find that, 10 years from now, there is a bat hibernacle that's closer than the 50 miles, or is within that. But we would capture that because the code requires you to consult and apply the recommendations that are provided by DEC and Fish and Wildlife.
And then for birds, isn't there certain lights that attract birds that make it basically attracted to the windmills and they end up getting slaughtered when they fly into them? So
I think
by,
there's been studies done, Roy, where they're starting to realize that, and they're changing those out to different colors.
yeah, but I mean, there's an opportunity to consider those things as well. That's above and beyond sighting. It's more of the systems themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not an expert. I wouldn't know how to draft those recommendations.
I think
and
I put some language in there.
I think the challenge with putting language is it reflects current technology.
Yes.
And then if the technology or the knowledge base changes, then we're making a recommendation that's not valid.
Yeah, and I think the way I worded it was more generic, but.
But to your point, Roy, I mean, to me, you're right that it is just focused on citing. So this, where's that language? It's, right.
That's citing.
Right, citing an operation, I
Yeah,
guess. I would add.
operations is the part a little further on.
Does it require citing an operation, or is it a separate letter?
I think it's just a one-time consultation, and they have to
Okay.
look at all of it, the whole project.
So you're recommending just saying citing and operation?
Well, no, because like the DEC is not going to look at it from an operational standpoint.
They will, but for something else.
They will, okay.
For,
But yeah, I mean, I think DEC will look at it if they have a consultation requirement because there's a species at issue. I mean, to me, like, I guess the discrepancy in what I look at the draft right now is that there's this requirement to avoid impacts to birds and bats, and then there's also refers to the consultation requirement. But that consultation only applies if there's actually a species of concern, meaning like a threatened or endangered species under state or federal law.
Not
And
your
so-
average bird.
Right, so not every bird is a threatened and endangered species, but, so that's the discrepancy I see right now. And I think if, to Roy's point, I think fleshing out that we care about and covering those other species, what should be involved apart from consultation.
Yeah.
But I think that involves some drafting, frankly.
Yeah, I think
So-
without being super specific, though, and I think that's what, when you did your comments, they were kind of very specific.
Yeah, some of them.
So is it my understanding that at this time, the committee feels that there should be something within the regulations for development of wind energy systems that considers the impact to any bird?
I support that. I mean, any bird.
birds and
Just big
birds and
bird,
bats.
just big bird.
flying animals.
Yeah.
So the other issue that I immediately thought of was, what about migration patterns?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, migration patterns are considered, well, okay.
In their review process, the New York State DEC and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service would consider populations of migratory birds and how
Yes.
those would be impacted by this, by any wind energy system. They don't just take a snapshot of what it looks like today. They consider whether or not this area is subject to migratory pathways for birds and bats.
And that's not just endangered birds, that is
Any bird.
any
Oh, okay.
migratory birds.
Okay.
Well, yeah, migratory
just
birds
to
are
be clear,
protected birds. The Migratory Bird Act.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me ask this, is it even feasible that there could be sighting and operation that would preclude any bird or bat from being harmed?
Not that I'm aware of at this
So I
point.
mean, I would not like to see it happen, I wouldn't want to go out and say, oh my, however, are we asking for something that's not in any way feasible to
yeah.
begin with?
I mean, that would be just like, say, well, in the event that your car hits a bird, we are no longer going to let you drive cars. It's
I
like,
don't
it's
think
kind of,
I don't think anybody's really saying that.
no, I know,
Well,
but that's to be
sure.
careful.
I think the equivalent concern that Sinette is bringing up is the consideration of any birds that might be flying through that area and changing if wind energy systems are allowed there because birds might be flying through. Would that preclude wind energy systems from the town of Penfield?
But I think Aries' comment about that people are, on the other hand, you don't want the opposite where certain lights are attracting birds to their demise. But if it's, and I don't know how much is what you said about, is already, you said it's being looked at and people are aware of, but have anything been passed on that? Or, is there evidence and?
Yeah, there's
I'd
lots
have
of
to do
studies.
more research. I've only seen
So that would be
And-
something that might be a consideration, but it
And
would be key.
is that something that the entire committee feels is relevant for the town to be addressed at town level?
Well, I was going to say, there is a lighting clause. So if there was a lighting concern that's specifically called out, then in that case, that could say, in that section,
Under the design?
under the
Yeah,
design,
like
under design.
Number 3.
clause
item.
number 3.
It's for the FAA, but.
Well, so it's saying it should not be artificially lighted unless it's required by the FAA, so that ideally would minimize the lighting.
I mean, my thinking, I had a comment to this effect, is that I'm fine with a code and supportive of a code that's more protective than state and federal law and protecting birds and bats. I guess my only concern is that it is a very technical issue, and I don't know if the town has the staff to actually weigh in on what constitute best practices for establishing these wind farm systems. And so that was my concern in the comments, and I feel like we're actually back at this point where there's a level of expertise here that I don't know if the town has to weigh in on these issues.
At this time, based on the staffing we currently have, I can tell you we do not.
You could almost make that argument about most of this renewable energy code.
Right.
I wouldn't agree with that statement.
And I would say that a lot of this code was drafted from state standards and state templates. So it's not as if we, wrote this from scratch. What we're kind of, I don't know what your recommendations, where they were cited from, if there was a plan or some sort of guidelines that you referenced. But ultimately, how we have written this is that it allows us for the state and federal agencies who are essentially the experts that would provide us with the best regulations and guidelines to consider during a wind energy system review process.
And I can tell you that as staff has written this and reviewed it, nothing was put in that staff felt could not be enforced by the town.
That's a good thing.
It's kind of, it would be a deal breaker otherwise.
Correct. So question on that consult language. The way it's worded there, applicants shall consult regulations and guidance provided by the New York State DEC, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services. Is that the exact language, Ari, that would trigger a consult under the DEC? Because to me, it sounds like you're just consulting those regulations and guidance.
So
versus
usually,
asking for a consult.
it depends on the project, but for wind, we typically, and I'm not, it's not my area of expertise, but I'm pretty certain that we typically do consult U.S. Fish and Wildlife and DEC for those projects because they're so big and they're so spread out. I'm talking about the large-scale wind
And
projects.
to get the regulations and guidance documents, you have to reach out to the DEC and U.S. Fish and Wildlife. That's not something you can just find online and have everything. So for the town to enforce that item, that's where we're going to be requiring documentation of that consultation.
And once the DEC has a consultation, are they then incumbent upon them to further go out and look at the facility as it's being constructed, or?
It depends on their findings. So if they
Yes.
find, snowy owl, for instance, you have to go out and do a study. Or you have to hire, as a developer, a consultant to go and do the study to prove that it's there or it's not there, and if it is there, where it is relative to the future construction, things like that.
So if you consult them, they are required to respond to that.
Yes.
Well, going on the fact that, well, for one thing, on the lighting, it seems that the lighting, okay, there could be lighting that draws birds in, but then on the other hand, the FAA is going to require lighting,
So-
you're
So we're requiring,
You're
by the way, this code
pushed
is
against two agencies.
right now, the way, with our requirements in the code, the draft code as written, we're requiring lighting to be minimized. With that, any additional lighting would be lighting that is required by the FAA. That's not something that the town can overrule.
Right, right. So I guess I'm,
So that's not,
Chris,
that's, no
right, it's
matter.
not up to us, right?
Right.
So, and the FAA, I think, has gone about with their own studies, and they recommend the strobe lighting, which deters birds and bats from attracted to the wind turbines, which would be good. So, I mean, if you're referring to the FAA, they're already going to refer to that. So I'm okay with that. And as far as if I understand the consult process correctly, I'm okay with that. The only other concern I have would be potentially the opportunity to protect migratory bird and bat habitats
I think that that is addressed as is written here.
with a consult.
Yes?
I'm not familiar with that process, but I'll take your words for it, and I'm okay with it.
Thank you for the discussion. That was very good.
Oh,
Okay.
So we're not quite halfway?
Not quite.
I guess the question is, what else is substantive going forward here is going to be the challenge.
I think there's a lot of like grammar type comments in there.
Okay, vibration, we took care
I missed that.
of.
There's a lot of what comments?
Like there was
Grammar.
Easy ones,
Oh,
basically.
yes.
Katie,
got
did you feel
resolved.
that one's resolved? Okay. Vibrations, we felt that was.
Yeah, I looked at the studies, you cited, and nice work, Matt.
So,
Is that the repeat of my previous issue?
Yes, I think
I
that-
resolved it, yes.
okay.
I already
I
said
think
it
that
was.
it may come back that upon further review, we find that we could add a definition for accessory and principal use, but again, it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be addressed now. So yeah, I'll mark that as resolved. Yeah, I think we had
Yep.
talked about that previously.
What about, what page are we on?
We are on,
Move on to my comment.
Okay, I'm at where Aries' comment is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
yeah. So, Ari, we had added an emergency management plan for Bass, I believe, right? Were you able to review that? Because ultimately, I believe that that's the how we've kind of addressed this. I mean, although, like, that's where the DEC or the New York State, we took those recommendations, applied them in. Do we feel that that's satisfied?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. It's not.
Do we want to
directly-
refer to, look at that section for, or is that,
Yeah, so I just want to make sure.
is that
we're
discussed in the,
I think you actually plopped it in there, right? Is that
Well,
the one
so
where you did?
this one
Accessory use,
is,
is that what you're looking at?
this comment was added in the wind energy systems section. We don't have an emergency operations plan for wind energy systems, but wind energy systems that tie into a battery energy storage system. That battery energy storage system has an emergency operations
Okay.
plan.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's, was another addition for the fencing requirements.
That one was resolved already.
That
I
one's
think.
Yeah, it was
Resolved?
resolved previously.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ownership changes, I had provided a response to this. I don't know if, Pat, you were able to,
That's fine, I was mostly curious about,
Right.
and the answer is, it would
Yeah,
be
it's-
difficult to check. I think it's going to be your neighbors watching and maybe contacting if there's something they don't like.
right, yeah, as with, any other non-compliant, non-conforming sort of structure.
Anything.
Right,
that's,
yeah, it could be
But-
code enforcement driving around town and seeing
Somebody
something, yeah.
bought something and they put a shed up after they bought the property.
And-
Nobody's going to know about it until somebody,
Our code already regulates conditional use permits with change of ownership, so they have to renew the conditional use permit
Okay.
and get that approval.
okay.
All right, and this is kind of just getting back to the intent that we've already discussed, the modifications to. Open loop in Arundecoit Bay, honestly, I think that one of the biggest hurdles to this is going to be that Arundecoit Bay, specifically the portion in the town of Penfield, is identified as imperiled mussel habitat. And so there's likely going to be a lengthy permitting process, potential mitigation factors. Ultimately, anything that would be going into Arundecoit Bay is going to require DEC approval anyways. And we cited that U.S. Fish and Wildlife says that open loop systems expel more waste than closed loop. So,
And that's why in the drafting of it, those were excluded.
right.
And private wells?
Do you mean like someone has a well on their property? I don't believe we can regulate private wells.
I mean, ultimately, private wells, I mean, they're still tapping into a public aquifer, right? So even though if it's a private well, the potential impact would be to a public water source. So I don't know if, again, like,
I think it
I would
falls
say
under the
that,
same category of the concern for environmental impacts from an open loop system. So my current understanding is
Right.
that it would still, an open loop system is still not desired within the town.
right,
Okay, I just wanted to make sure it was clear.
sure. And this is kind of, I believe I just addressed that kind of.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And we just wanted to clarify, so I think I provided an image of how you could vertically bore down near your house or go down, but we're not really, that's not what we're considering as that 10-foot setback. The boring is the deep core boring that goes, hundreds of feet down or whatever that, I can't recall what the limitation is off the top of my head. But we're basically saying that that boring, the vertical deep boring for the GES is what needs to be set back. Not that initial, underground loop.
Gotcha.
Right.
And that's just to prevent any concerns with foundation.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then if somebody wanted to do one of those borings that's part of their structure, that would be a variance of some sort.
Yep.
Yes.
Is there a requirement for geotechnical for these? These are pretty, the one well is really deep, like, and impacts to existing structures and neighboring structures. So in like a more condensed neighborhood,
Hey, Katie, not to put you on the spot, but because I know you went through the process, that current process with the town to have a geothermal system put in, was there any geotechnical required for youth in that process? Do
I
you
don't
remember?
believe so. They drilled one well
Straight,
to
yeah.
500 feet, and that was too much for
We know the
Penfield.
Yeah, we know the complications with that. Can you put a note, Matt, to review potential need for geotechnical analysis or review? I don't think that would be a substantial change that would have an issue or cause an issue for a public hearing. Does anyone else see a concern with that? Okay.
I'm just
Then
curious more than
we'll
anything.
continue to address that comment.
Okay.
And yes, that's a valid concern.
Wouldn't that be a substantial, though?
You think it would be substantial?
Why wouldn't it be?
Truthfully, I think it could be something that could be in the design spec as a requirement and doesn't actually have to be in the code, so I don't think it would be a substantial change to the code. It can be included in the code, and I still don't think it's a substantial change because it's changing the paperwork that's required rather than preventing a system from being installed.
Right, but that's something the public would think would want to know if they're going to have to do a geotechnical analysis.
Although I think it's the same thing. If it's in the design spec, that's completely separate anyway.
Right,
So
but
that's,
we don't know where it is yet. So that's my point, like, it's one of those things that, like, if I'm coming to this and I'm reading this code, and
Sure.
I'd want to know.
Will you modify that comment to say review need for geotechnical analysis based on deep ground structures for design spec? Does that meet your comment?
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I think that's a good
I like
idea.
that, Roy. Good, it's a good inclusion.
Is that for you, Ari?
Yes.
Okay,
Yep,
great, sorry.
definitely.
We're down to our last 3 minutes.
I'm
So
okay, you
it
can
doesn't look like
eliminate
we'll
my
get
comment.
3
through
minutes, we
It's
can do
similar,
one note per minute.
it was similar to the previous.
Abandonment one can go away.
Yes.
Does,
Can we do it?
Yeah, we can do it. I think
Okay.
we answered that comment.
Yep.
We went back and forth.
Yeah.
those are additions from you?
This we had already discussed, so this is
Yep.
where that emergency operations
Yep,
plan
that's
now
where that
lives.
went in, got
Perfect,
tucked
yeah.
in.
Great.
And that's the additions that Matt put in for that.
And that's
So,
fencing.
We understand the fencing requirements are going to be NEC standards.
And we
Mhm.
updated the document to reflect that.
Yeah.
Is there all Matt
The
comments?
EVCS requirement, there's no other part of the town code that requires a specific type of payment. We don't say that when you go to a gas station, you must allow credit card payments. So ultimately, I don't know if
Sure.
it's
That's- yeah.
appropriate
For the code.
for the town code. So photometric plans, and, if an applicant were requested to provide a photometric plan, we'd provide those details in the same way that, site plan requirements or landscape requirements, those are provided by the engineering department as needed, but we don't explicitly define them in the code. Yeah, that has been there for a while.
Off topic, real quick, is there
Nope.
going to be like a GIS database located where you can look and see where all the EV locations, the charging stations are in the town?
There's PlugShare.
Okay, that's
Um,
okay.
I can
Okay.
tell you that the new station at Shadow Pines hasn't been put in that yet, but
Okay.
that's because I'm still working to get it like officially online. So once that is set up and charging,
Are we rec-
payments are set up with it,
Okay.
then we'll
Okay.
make sure that's updated.
Since
Okay,
we are at our
perfect.
final minute, are we at a point where as a group, we can have a motion to accept this barring any other small changes, or what is?
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
Sorry. If the committee feels it would be appropriate for the town board to have a public hearing, then someone could make a motion for staff to draft a letter to the town board outlining that the committee at this time does not expect any major changes and would recommend the town board to move forward with a public hearing for the draft res code as currently written.
You guys okay with that?
I'm okay with that.
Okay,
if
so
someone
can I
wants
have a
to make
motion?
recommend a motion for what I just said, you can do it just like that.
Can I make a motion?
You are a committee member, yes.
I make a motion to
I
do
second.
what she just said.
I second what they just said.
Great. And just for formality's sake, Matt will, as he writes the minutes, address exactly what that motion is, as I spoke before. Can we have ayes or nays?
Yes. All in
Let's do
favor?
aye. Thank you.
Do I?
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
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 Okay. Thank you.
This
With-
does not preclude changes after it's gone through public hearing.
No, I know.
As you know that has happened.
It is my current understanding that if there are any public comments coming from the public hearing, the town board may, at that time, request this committee to review any of those comments. That traditionally has been the next step, but obviously they would need to make that request since it's their decision. At this time, there are no upcoming events.
But just go ahead and take a look at the Penfield rec offerings in terms of things that Penfield Green is included in, since
Color
that's
Penfield
always
Green.
important for us. Did you want 2 seconds to talk about the Monroe County Organic Survey?
Do we, okay. Monroe County Department of Environmental Services is in the process of developing an organics management plan, and they would like to know what residents think about composting and how much people would be willing to pay. Should yard waste be included? Takes about 10 minutes, and it would be great. And there's residents as well, for farmers as well, for businesses.
How do they find the survey?
There is a website.
It's Monroe County website?
It's the Monroe County
Somebody
website.
send
We can
us?
provide a
Yes.
link in
Can
the
you share
minutes.
it, or-
We'll look it up and get it posted
Okay, sorry.
afterwards.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, is there anything else that we need to cover tonight? Okay. In that case, I'm going to declare this November 14th meeting of the Energy and Environmental Conservation Committee closed. Our next meeting is December 12th.